Hi, this is Terry. Today is February 26, 2023. I thought it'd be fun today to share with you 3 things I don't really obsess about anymore. I guess you can say as a new gardener. That could be, thinking too much about it or worrying too much about it as a new gardener. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one is weeds. So when I first started gardening, oh my gosh, I was obsessive with weeds, just trying to get rid of them. Like I just couldn't keep up with them. I just see them everywhere, and I must have watched so many YouTube videos on how to get rid of these weeds, to a point where I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I could get rid of these weeds. So what really helped me to put everything into perspective in regard to weeds was visiting a garden, a public garden. And I guess I was thankful that that garden had like so many weeds, so it made me feel better that if a public garden had weeds, then me as a new gardener, I mean, I shouldn't be obsessed about it all that much that everyone has weeds. So that really took the pressure of me trying to feel like I have to get my space like weed free. As you know, you really can't get rid of all of the weeds. I guarantee you, like every garden has weeds. The good thing is I'm not, so worried about having weeds that other people are going to notice that I have weeds. But I have, seen other people's gardens since then, and weeds are I guess it's a normal thing. So yeah, so if you're a new gardener, please do not worry that your garden has to be weed free, because there's no such thing as a weed free garden. So the second thing I don't obsess about anymore as a new gardener is comparing my garden to other people's gardens, whether it's on Instagram or on YouTube. I used to I wanted my garden to be as lush as other people's garden that I see on Instagram. They're just so beautiful. So I had to tell myself that this is my garden. I know my journey. I just want a simple, low maintenance garden, and I just have to be fine with that. And I just have to be fine with the fact that when I post things, not a lot of people might like what I post, because for whatever reason, maybe my garden doesn't look lush, I don't have the plants that they want, or it's not pretty enough for whatever reason. I try not to compare my garden journey to other people's garden like I used to. It's just nice for me to be able to document my journey, my gardening journey. And I hope that some of you out there who have been following me, you have seen a lot of good changes. You've seen growth. I know that in 5 years, um, it's gonna look so much better. All right, we have come down to the last thing I don't obsess about anymore as a new gardener, and that is all these different sprays, fertilizers, things like that. Before I started gardening, I did a lot of observation in my space here, and I noticed just we get plenty of rain. Everything just looks so lush and green. Well, except of course in the winter. Especially in the spring, summer, fall, everything just looks really beautiful, really lush still. Because of that, I knew that all the plants would do really well in my space if I planted them correctly. That means, like raising them up an inch or two above ground level, and then, maybe care for them in the beginning. But as far as fertilizers and things like that, I probably didn't need them. But anyway, at some point I was like, maybe I do need fertilizers. Maybe I need to, spray them with these chemicals or that chemical, whatever it was. But I got to a point where I was like, I'll just do one simple fertilizer in late winter or early spring. And then I just buy I buy the plant tone. Before I probably bought like different ones because I didn't know which ones were good, and I just thought I needed to fertilize certain plants and things like that. But these plants, most of these plants I don't even fertilize, and they still do pretty good. Now maybe if I had fertilized them, they would be a lot bigger. I'm not sure, but all I know is the plants here do really well. Now, if they don't do well in your zone, even though you've given them, some fertilizer, it could mean that maybe they're not the plants that grow well in your area. So you may have to rethink about that, which I have done. I feel like if I plant something and they don't do well, it's just not the plants for me, and I might just have to, forego them. The other thing that I have been contemplating about are my roses. Now, I bought, I think, 2 or 3 roses on my own, but the rest were already here. And roses don't really do well in my zone 7B that gets lots of rain. So what that means is it stays moist pretty much year round. And I know the roses don't like that. So, I mean, last year I bought, I don't know, I'll put it up on the screen for you. I bought some rose sprays. I don't know if they work all that well. So, I was really freaked out about my roses. Like, oh my gosh, every time I post a video, I have to be careful, not showing the leaves because there would be spots and things like that or whatever. So I just got to a point where, like, you know what, I'm not gonna care too much about these leaf spots and things like that. And I might just not even have roses anymore because I know that they just don't do well here. So I'm gonna give them, but I will give them a few more years to see how they do without me doing much to them. I'm gonna try them to put in certain areas in the garden that I think they might look good, or that might not require a lot of care from me, and then also an area where they're not gonna get affected by the constant rain that we get here. So that way I'm not gonna really concern about trying to spray for them. Luckily for me, I've not had to spray my garden except for the roses, except for the deer sprays. I do that. I use the liquid fence just to deter the deer. What I also learned is that if you have to use a lot of sprays for all these different pests that you have in the garden, it just means maybe the plants are under stress. The plants may not be in the right spot that they're supposed to be in. Maybe they're not in the right zone that you're putting them in, or your zone is not what they prefer. So anyway, typically, if you have, your birds, you have your good insects and things like that, everything should be working together to have everything go well, so you won't have to use all that much sprays. But then again, I really don't know if what I'm saying makes sense to some of you, because I don't grow a lot of vegetables, and I know that with veggies and things like that, you run into more pests. So maybe when I start to grow more vegetables, I will be rethinking about this kind of issues. But definitely, my goal is always to have my garden low maintenance, whether I'm growing veggies or ornamentals and things like that. So I hope you learned something from this video about weeds, about not comparing your garden to other people's garden, and not worrying too much about all the different fertilizers, all the different sprays. Well, that is it. If you have any comments or questions, please write them down below. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Bye.